War is rarely about glory. For the soldiers on the front lines of World War II, it was often a daily struggle just to stay alive. Amidst the chaos of battle, the constant threat of enemy fire, and the exhaustion of long marches, there was another enemy: hunger. Supply lines broke, rations ran out, and entire units were forced to improvise to survive. The ingenuity required to feed themselves under those conditions gave rise to a set of survival techniques and traps that, remarkably, remain relevant today for anyone who wants to understand self-reliance. These weren't sophisticated devices. They were simple, effective, and designed for practicality under pressure. By looking at these World War II survival traps, we can learn how soldiers survived extreme scarcity, and how modern survivalists can apply the same principles in backyard scenarios or emergency situations. World War II soldiers turned necessity into resourcefulness through improvised trapping techniques. When rations dwindled and foraging became essential, soldiers quickly learned that survival depended on observation, patience, and adaptability. Many units were trained to recognize the natural behaviors of local wildlife: how rabbits traveled, where fish congregated, and which birds frequented certain trees. This knowledge allowed them to set improvised traps using materials at hand. Empty cans, broken crates, wires, and even discarded equipment became the building blocks for snares, deadfalls, and fishing lines. The genius of these traps lay not in their complexity, but in their efficiency. They required minimal resources while offering maximum potential return. One key principle soldiers followed was location scouting. A trap in the wrong place is worthless. Soldiers learned to observe tracks, droppings, and feeding signs. In modern terms, this translates to scouting your backyard or local wilderness. Even a small urban garden can harbour a surprising variety of edible insects or small animals if you pay attention to their habits and activity patterns. Simple snares were the backbone of survival feeding strategies. Soldiers used wire, string, or parachute cord to create loops that would capture rabbits, squirrels, or birds. The snare worked because it exploited natural behavior. Animals follow paths of least resistance, often repeating the same trails between feeding and bedding areas. Positioning a snare along one of these trails ensured a high likelihood of success without constant monitoring. For a modern application, the principle remains the same. Even in a backyard or garden setting, a basic snare can be used to manage pests in a humane way or to study wildlife for educational purposes. The technique emphasizes patience, knowledge of animal movement, and the clever use of available materials, skills that are transferable to urban foraging and survival preparedness. Another method soldiers often relied on was the deadfall trap, which uses a weighted object to incapacitate prey. Soldiers would balance rocks, logs, or even equipment cases to fall when triggered by a tripwire. The beauty of deadfall traps was their ability to function passively. A single trap could be left for hours or days, requiring minimal maintenance while still delivering results. In a backyard or rural survival scenario, the deadfall principle can be adapted to small-scale food gathering. For instance, using lightweight, safe materials to create small gravity traps for fruit collection or to safely contain pests is a practical way to practice the mechanics and timing of these World War II techniques without risk. Waterways offered soldiers another lifeline when terrestrial game was limited. Improvised fishing traps and lines were constructed from wire, tin cans and cloth. Soldiers often placed these traps in shallow streams or along riverbanks, designing them to funnel fish into narrow openings from which escape was nearly impossible. Knowledge of water currents, fish behavior and tidal patterns turned simple materials into consistent sources of protein. Today, this translates to backyard or urban aquaponics systems. Small DIY fish traps or funnels can be built for ponds or contained water systems. Beyond the practical survival application, this method demonstrates observation and pattern recognition, skills that are as valuable now as they were in 1944. What sets World War II survival traps apart from casual hunting or modern gardening is the focus on efficiency. Every trap, snare or line was designed to minimize labor while maximizing sustenance. Soldiers learned to construct multi-use devices. A single wire could serve as a snare, a line for hanging food, or a trigger mechanism. Materials were recycled constantly. This principle is, absolutely critical for modern urban preparedness, where space, resources and time are limited. For example, in your backyard, a simple repurposed tin can might become a compost feeder, a small trap for pests, or even a water collection container. The key is thinking like a soldier. Every object has multiple survival applications. And, understanding this mindset really multiplies the effectiveness of whatever resources you have at hand. World War II soldiers survived against incredible odds, relying on ingenuity, observation and resourcefulness rather than modern conveniences. By studying their survival traps, we not only gain insight into history, but also acquire practical skills that apply to backyard self-reliance, urban preparedness and emergency scenarios. If you found this guide valuable, make sure to subscribe to Backyard Wisdom, share it with fellow history enthusiasts, and leave a comment detailing which World War II survival technique you plan to try first. These lessons are timeless, and keeping them alive ensures that the ingenuity of the past continues to inform the survivalists of today.